Well, good evening, everyone, and happy Monday. Welcome to this special bonus edition of the Whitfield Report. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, recording here at NGC Studios, and I want to thank you so much for joining me. Whether you're watching this on the premiere on YouTube or if you're listening to this on the audio podcast. And I don't do Monday shows very often, but I figured I would do this quick bonus episode. Maybe it won't be so quick. It just all kind of depends. And I want to explain why I'm doing this. But first off, contact info as usual. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @somebodybear_NGC, hashtag Whitfield Report. You can also follow the Whitfield Report on Twitter at Whitfield Report, and you can follow the show on Instagram at Whitfield Report Pod. I don't post too much to the show's Instagram. You can also follow me on Parler at Sam Whitfield, Facebook.com/Whitfield Report. TheSamWhitfield.com is my website, and please, as always, if you enjoy the podcast, particularly the audio podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and support us on whichever other podcatchers you listen to the podcast on, whether that be Spotify or Pocket Cast, Overcast, wherever else. Streamlabs.com/The Whitfield Report if you'd like to donate one time. Anchor.fm/The Whitfield Report if you'd like to contribute monthly. And so on and so forth. All links are below in the description for the podcast on YouTube or in the description for the show notes. Alright, folks, real quick before we begin the show, I would like to address a couple of quick housekeeping things, and this kind of pertains partially as to why I'm doing the show on Monday. So I did a show on Thursday and on Saturday of this previous week. However, I was not able to upload the audio podcast on Thursday right away because for some reason Anchor was down on Thursday, so I was not able to upload it then. And then because of the length of Saturday's show, for those of you who have not watched and or listened to the Saturday show yet, I did a 4-hour, what ended up being a 4-hour live stream with Semper Reloaded. Some of you guys may know him as Semper Bear. He is no longer a bear, obviously, though. And he and I spent like 4 hours kind of breaking down Owen Benjamin's newest obsession, which of course is turpentine, and quote unquote getting rid of the gay graveler parasites in his gut with turpentine. And no, folks, I am not making that up. So we broke down that, and I got to hear Semper's story. It wound up being a very good but very long podcast, about 4 hours in length. Generally, I try and keep the show to about an hour and a half, 2 hours max, but there was just so much to cover. And by the way, Semper, if you're watching and you're listening to this, don't feel bad at all. I enjoyed our conversation, and even though I try and keep the podcast, at 2 hours max, sometimes it goes over, and that's just the way it goes. And, I was having some trouble uploading the audio for both that show and the Thursday show to Anchor for the podcast, but I figured some workarounds for that. So the shows will be up there on the audio podcast feed. Hopefully by the time this episode that you're currently listening to is released, those 2 episodes will also be on there, properly dated and everything. Going through the podcast and inserting episodes on the back catalog it can be tricky sometimes and a little time consuming, but it's worth it, and there is a way to do it. So, thank you for your patience. The other thing I've gotten a few emails and tweets about is people are not receiving notifications for the channel, for the Whitfield Report channel, when I go live or when I premiere a video. And folks, I don't know why that is. There are some channels that I subscribe to that I have the bell turned on for that I don't always get notifications for either. Young Ripa 59 is one of them, and which is really a pain in the butt because I'm actually like a member of his channel and I support it financially, but I don't get notifications for his live streams anymore. So there you go. And people are always quick to jump and say, "Oh, it's YouTube censoring." And that could very much be it, but YouTube is also notorious for having bugs and errors and whatnot. So who knows at this point? Regardless, though, I will do my best to try and notify people when we're going live, when we have new videos. I'll continue to tweet them out and post them on Parler as much as I can. I'm going to try and figure out a way to do push notifications somehow for my content. Like, I'm not going to create a whole app for the Whitfield Report because obviously that's time consuming. But if there's like a mechanism in which I can just simply push out like push notifications for free, obviously, and kind of send out like little notification blasts with like, links to things. Obviously, I will try and do that, and I'll let you know where you guys can find that so you guys can get notifications directly from me. So, I am aware of some of the issues that we're having here, folks, and, I am addressing them. Uh, you know, I'm one man. This is a one-man operation. I produce the podcast, host it, edit it, the whole 9 yards. Obviously, I have friends like Evil Eric, who help me with the artwork, and my friend Chip, who helps with the music, and I'm very appreciative of those two gentlemen and everyone else who helps with the show. My fellow podcasters and YouTubers who help to promote the show, and spread it around to their friends. So believe me, I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying that, a large portion of this is done by me, solely, one person. So sometimes I do fall behind a little bit on posting episodes to the podcast feed, but, in producing stuff. But I always, try my best to put out a good show. So I figured, Monday's show, this would be a good time just to kind of catch up on some of the news that, I didn't have a chance to cover over the weekend. And with that being said, the first story that I wanted to cover over the weekend, I didn't get a chance to cover, was the banning of Nick Fuentes from YouTube. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, most of you guys know who Nick Fuentes is, but Nick Fuentes is kind of like a right-wing, political commentator, paleo-conservative-ish, I think is how he would pronounce, how he would identify maybe. Some people have called him alt-right, and to be fair, I think that's a pretty, that term gets thrown around so much now that it's lost its meaning. And granted, he has said some very controversial things, before, and made some, jokes about, the Jews and other stuff like that, that I don't necessarily always agree with his style or, with what he's saying. And I've had bouts with the gripers and whatnot. I don't necessarily always agree with Nick's tactics or his style. But I still, even if I don't agree with him as a fellow, content creator, I can respect, what he's doing and, strictly as a content creator. And I believe he has, the right to create content and put it out there for his audience. So when I found out that he got banned this weekend from YouTube, uh, you know, as with everyone else in kind of the blog sphere, uh, I think that the that the term that the termination of Nick's YouTube account is kind of, well, this puts us on another slippery slope, because while I don't necessarily always agree with the content and what Nick says, I certainly don't believe that he should be banned for putting his beliefs out there. And even if they are extreme, even if I don't agree with him, he has never made calls. He has never made calls to violence, as far as I'm aware. And so there, as long as that's not happening, there's no reason to ban him or anyone else for that matter. And I don't really know who this JF Gariepi guy is, who apparently was one of the ones who is claiming that helped ban him. I know JF a little bit because he made like a brief cameo appearance in the Owen Benjamin documentary that Porcelain did, where he debunked Owen's crazy stuff about the moon. And that's really all I know of JF. I don't know that much about him. I've heard that he's kind of a shady dude. And, he abducted a kid. I've heard that from more than one person. Like, I've heard it from multiple sources, so I'm kind of assuming that's true. But then again, I don't know. And what you have to understand, folks, is what you have to understand, in the words of Vox Day. God, I hate using that phrase now, but in this instance, it's true. What you have to understand about me, folks, is I come from a podcast and radio background. That's kind of how I got my start, with podcasting and radio. So, like, a lot of the personalities that I know of, are mostly podcasters, like Adam Carolla, Joe Rogan, In Talk Radio, Rush Limbaugh, obviously, who I'll get to, here in a bit. But I'm not too familiar with these, with these streamer types. Really, Owen was my first kind of exposure to this universe, and I guess now I kind of am one of them. So, I consider myself a kind of like a radio podcast guy who got into streaming because that is now the medium, but I like to think that I bring a radio style to this whole thing, or at least I try to. So, I don't necessarily know who all these streamers are, but, based on what I'm hearing at JF, he kind of seems like a shady guy. And, again, I don't really condone, going out there and, intentionally getting people banned off of platforms just because you disagree with them. Owen Benjamin is really the one exception to that rule, as I've stated before. And my biggest issue with Owen, obviously, is, and I do think he should have been banned. But the reason being wasn't so much because of anything he said, so much in terms of his views, but when he made that, accusation towards Johnny Arcade of, sending poison gummies to his house when he doxed Johnny and a couple other people, on stream, and then I got tied into that whole thing. I believe that type of behavior, is bannable and should be punished. But like if he had just gone on about the moon, and that was the end of it, or even like even this whole ridiculous turpentine cleanse, like I don't believe he should be banned for that. I don't believe he should be banned for the turpentine thing because it's quite honestly it's hilarious and it gives the rest of us great content. I don't believe the moon thing he should have been banned, for that or anything else. Really, like honestly, doxing and harassing people, as a general rule, I think is like the only, kind of acceptable thing for people to get banned for from platforms these days. That's just my opinion on the whole Owen thing. But getting back to Nick, I disagree with him, as I've stated in past live streams and on podcasts. The gripers haven't been, they're not that particularly fond of me. I had my good friend Sean on a couple of times on the podcast and the Versa Media crew. They've had their run-ins with the gripers, and they don't think too highly of the gripers either. We're not big Nick Fuentes fans in general, and yet we don't like the idea of him getting banned, because of what he may or may not have said. And from this, it just seems like Antifa was trying to put a kind of a hit out on his channel, and it is it's unfair. It's bad that they're censoring. And yeah, you could make the argument that Nick Fuentes is an extremist voice, I guess, but then we go down the whole slippery slope once again of, well, who is considered extreme, right? What is the benchmark of extreme? Because, okay, one day, the Nick Fuentes of the world could be considered extreme and they could get banned, but then the next day I could be considered the next extreme and I can get banned. So it's just never really, I think the litmus test thus far has proven to be way too unreliable. And I mean, honestly, there really isn't a litmus test, for like extremism, I think now, because YouTube is just outright banning people who they don't agree with. So, I think YouTube should reinstate Nick Fuentes. Are they going to? No, I don't think so. But, this puts us again in the slippery slope of even people like me who disagree with Nick are now forced to, support him because of free speech. So, I think if JF wanted to stop him, if the left wanted to truly stop him, what they should have done is just let the gay catboy meme thing play out. Nick kind of got into trouble with that a few months ago. People were he was starting to kind of lose his clout over that. And I really didn't talk much about the, whole gay catboy thing. I didn't care. But, he lost a lot of, clout with that. He lost a lot of his reputation. And, it seemed like kind of like he was starting to fade out. And then JF had to go and do this. So, in a way, JF kind of made him, relevant again and whatnot. Which is what the left always does when they, when they try and take someone out, they inevitably, make their targets more popular. And also, when I say take someone out, I don't mean literally. I mean metaphorically in this case. But anyway, one of the things I found very interesting, though, is the reaction from Ben Shapiro, who, to the surprise of some, has actually defended Nick Fuentes, and and is also saying that he should not be banned. Now, Ben Shapiro probably dislikes Nick Fuentes even more than I do. I'm not a fan, and Ben Shapiro certainly isn't a fan. But check out this, subreddit thread. This is actually from Dave Rubin's subreddit, and let me pull this up and put it on the screen for you guys, so you can see. Okay, so I'm on the Rubin Report subreddit, or rather the Dave Rubin subreddit now. For those of you listening on audio, I will narrate this for you guys. So this post is very interesting because, right, the alt-right and kind of the Groyper ilk, they hate Ben Shapiro, and they think he's a shill for Israel or whatever. He's like an extremist Jew, or they say all sorts of nasty stuff about Ben usually, in my experience. And yet, Ben Shapiro is defending Fuentes here, which, I think, again, is the right thing to do. So Ben Shapiro, in a tweet here, let me pull up the actual tweet here too, by the way. Okay, cancel. Okay, so the tweet goes, the tweet reads as follows, and I'm on Ben Shapiro's Twitter page now. Nick Fuentes is an absolutely disgusting bleep show, but he was banned for his idiotic garbage viewpoints rather than for violent threats. YouTube shouldn't be deplatforming him. So again, Ben doesn't agree with with Nick, but even he's defending Fuentes and saying that YouTube's banning of Fuentes is ridiculous, which I agree with. Now let's go back to this subreddit post on Dave Rubin's subreddit, and so I follow Dave Rubin's subreddit. There are a bunch of subreddits I follow, and I just like to get into various communities and see what other people are saying. I don't really post in this one, but this one kind of stuck out to me. So you have some on the far right saying that Ben Shapiro is an Israeli shill and that he's a neocon shill and whatnot, right? But then you have other people like on the Dave Rubin subreddit who are saying stuff like this, and I quote, for those of you listening on audio. Ben Shapiro won't defend gay people if a bakery discriminates against them, but he will defend Nazi boy Nick Fuentes for being deplatformed by YouTube after violating hate speech rules. Right? So, hang on a sec here, folks. It's interesting, right? Because in this case, Ben Shapiro is being called a shill for Nick Fuentes. And I find the juxtaposition so hilarious that, I mean, it is funny in a sense. So, uh, hang on, folks. I've got to take this real quick. Hold on. Let me just pause here, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, folks, I am back, and yeah, I'm back from a brief commercial break. Sorry about the brief interruption there. I had to take that call. By the way, I have a sound effects board now, so yay for us on the podcast. Anyway, so as I've said before, it's interesting that Ben is defending Nick Fuentes and getting called a shill, for the alt-right. Now, that, that's funny to me just because, Ben's been very critical of Nick Fuentes, and I happen to think rightly so, although, others will disagree with me on that. But it just goes to show that when it comes to free speech, at least in this case, I think Ben actually is, pretty decent on that. And, it's amusing to me that you have Rubin Report subreddit members criticizing Ben, for that. So, like I said, there's that headline comment, and then some of the other comments are saying Ben Shapiro's a joke. How does he still have followers? Well, some may agree with that. He literally relies on funding from corporate billionaires to Sam's social media and YouTube with ads. So, this Rubin Report, thread in particular, it seems to be mostly from the left, but, that's the funny thing, is the far left always criticize is Ben Shapiro being alt-right, and like defending neo-Nazis and whatnot, and then the far right always, in the alt-right, claims that Ben Shapiro is, like a Mossad agent and a Jewish banking, mastermind and whatnot. It's just crazy to me, folks, and but regardless, I think in this case, like I said, defending Nick Fuentes' right to free speech is the right thing to do. So, in conclusion for this segment, while I don't agree with Nick Fuentes on everything, he certainly should not have been banned. I think that was wrong. So, anyway, moving on here, folks. Next item in the news from this past week. Radio host Rush Limbaugh, you've heard me talk, I think, before, in my admiration for the man. He is in hot water with the far left now because, once again, because he dare criticize the left's new darling, Pete Buttigieg, for, basically, he wasn't even really criticizing Pete Buttigieg. He was just commenting on the fact that a large portion of the country isn't really ready for a gay president now. And this occurred after there was a news clip that came out from NBC News of a Democrat voter in Iowa who, upon learning that Buttigieg was gay, said that she wanted her ballot back. Now, we have that video clip right here. So this is the original clip that sparked, the controversy over, Pete Buttigieg when this Democrat from Iowa wants her, she wants her ballot back upon finding out that, Buttigieg is gay and married. Clip number 1, let's roll the tape.
Came
So
over
are you
to.
saying that he has a same-sex partner?
He?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you kidding?
Yeah, he's married to him, yes.
Well, then I don't want anybody like that in the White House. So can I have my card back?
I don't know. He signed it. We could go ask.
I never knew that.
Well, so the whole point of it is, though, if he's a human being, right? Just like you and me, and should it really matter? That's what.
Well, he better read the Bible.
He does, and he says that God doesn't choose a political party because.
Why does it say in the Bible that a man should marry a woman then?
Well, I totally respect your viewpoint on this. I so totally do. But I think that we were not around.
How
when that
come
was
this has
being
never
written.
been brought out before?
It's common knowledge.
I never heard it.
So this is admittedly pretty funny that, an Iowa Democrat, goes to the poll and, votes for, Buttigieg, who, it is pretty common knowledge out there that he is, gay and that he is married. So, again, this voter, to borrow, Rush's terminology, would be your typical low information voter Democrat. Okay? She voted for him because, he's a Democrat, and yet, she didn't know that it was gay, and now that, this comes out, she wants her ballot back. Right? So let's continue on here.
We can talk to someone if you need to talk to them about this. I don't know the rules on this or not, but I guess what I would like you to just dig deep inside and think, like, should it matter if it's a woman or if it's a man or if they're heterosexual or homosexual if you believe in what they say? That's my question.
It all just went right down the toilet, is where it all just went.
And that you have a total right.
Now, the other thing I will point out here, for those of you guys who are listening on audio, this woman is wearing Buttigieg campaign buttons on her sweatshirt. She also has Klobuchar, buttons. She kind of looks like a butch, Dyke, to kind of be honest. She kind of looks like a Democrat voter. And yet, this goes to show that even in the Bible Belt, which is a pretty significant portion of the country, even the Democrats are iffy on gay marriage, to put it lightly.
Your opinion, and I am not trying to tell you to think otherwise, but we'll ask what they want us to do. But I just ask you to look inside your heart, because you sound like a Christian woman to me, and I'm a Christian woman, and my God wants me to love everybody. I do, yep. I do.
So you must not believe it then if you think it's okay for somebody to be married to a same-sex person.
No, I think we're just interpreting it different, and that's okay, because everybody gets to have their own beliefs. But
so this is another, instance of, the kind of the old school, boomery Democrat, disagreeing with the new age millennial Democrat. Now, as far as gay marriage goes, like, look, it's not my thing, obviously. But if you're going to, if you're gonna bang a dude, more power to you, I guess. I don't really care one way or the other, but apparently this voter does. So, the exchange goes on a bit, like this. It continues on. I'm not going to play the whole clip. You get the general gist of that. So then Rush Limbaugh makes this remark about Buttigieg, and I have the audio of it. I don't have the video, and I found this on YouTube, so there was like some background music. But this was Rush's statement regarding the whole Buttigieg thing, and his comments, as you'll hear, get taken out of context pretty quick. So this is Rush on the whole Buttigieg thing. Clip number 2. Roll the tape.
So let's say you're the Democrat establishment, and you're faced with some hard, cold truths. You got Bernie number 1, Buttigieg number 2, and Klobuchar with her Klobumentum number 3. You get Pocahontas way back there in the background, barely out of the teepee, bringing up the tail end. Biden's gone. So you're faced with a dyed-in-the-wool socialist who's not even a Democrat, a gay guy, 37 years old, loves kissing his husband on debate stages. Can you see Trump have fun with that? And Amy Klobuchar. So you are whoever the grand poobah is in the Democrat Party. You're looking at your options today. And you're you're asking, okay, can we win with Club? We don't want to put Klobuchar up there because she doesn't have a prayer. Trump's going to wipe the floor with her, and that would mean 2 women in a row get wiped out by Donald Trump. 2 Democrat women in a row. We can't have that. We can't let that happen. Then they're sitting there, and they're looking at Mayor Pete. 37-year-old gay guy, Mayor South Bend, loves to kiss his husband on the debate stage. And they're saying, okay, how's this going to look? 37-year-old gay guy kissing his husband on stage next to Mr. Man, Donald Trump. What's going to happen there? And they got to be looking at that, and they've got to be saying that despite all the great progress and despite all the great wokeness and despite all the great ground that's been covered, America's still not ready to elect a gay guy kissing his husband on the debate stage president.
Now, I want to mention something here real quick with that, because, right, the media, The View, and whatnot, MSNBC, CNN, they've run with that quote as saying that Rush Limbaugh was attacking Mayor Pete and making homophobic comments. But no, what Rush was making reference to was indeed the clip that I just played of the registered Democrat voter woman who asked for her ballot back, the one I just played a moment ago. That's what Rush was making reference to, and saying, look, not even the Democrats are ready, for a gay guy in the White House. Which is true. Like, whether you agree with gay marriage or not, or whether you're kind of neutral-ish on the subject, there is a large swath that just isn't ready for a gay president. I'm not ready for a gay president, one that's going to make a big deal out of like Mayor Pete. That doesn't mean I hate him. I just don't think that the country is ready for that. And geez, I mean, now that I just said that, YouTube might, very well ban me for, just stating that fact. But, now Rush is getting attacked as saying, something like, horribly homophobic. The View, Rush attacked Mayor Pete. He's so homophobic. And, then you've got the Reddit trolls out there who are, continuing to say, oh, I hope Rush's lung cancer gets worse. Yeah, I hope that. And I hope he dies. Rush is such a homophobe that I hope the lung cancer, kills him faster. But, I'm loving and tolerant. So there's that whole thing. So anyway, let me let Rush finish this clip.
They have to be saying this, don't they? Now, there may be some Democrats who think that is the ticket. There may be some Democrats who think that's exactly what we need to do, Rush. Get a gay guy kissing his husband on stage, you ram it down Trump's throat, and beat him in a general election. Really? Having fun envisioning that. What are they left with? Crazy Bernie. They're left with the avowed revolutionary socialist.
Yeah, so, as Rush pointed out, and as I just pointed out in that last clip, Mayor Pete is just, it's not going to happen. A lot of Democrat voters, despite Antifa's best attempts, and despite the far left's attempt, a lot of Democrats still are not ready for this. In fact, as I said a few weeks ago, the left is going so far left that Democrat voters are starting to push back against it. And, this is evidence of that, as I played in the last clip. Now, Mayor Pete's reaction to this is to, say, oh, well, how dare Limbaugh lecture me on family values? Even though Rush didn't. So here is Mayor Pete firing back at, the evil Rush Limbaugh and all of conservatism. Clip number 3.
Well, I love my husband. I'm faithful to my husband. On stage, we usually just go for a hug. But I love him very much. And I'm not going to take lectures on family values from the likes of Rush Limbaugh.
He wasn't lecturing you on your family values, Mr. Buttigieg. He was just saying that, your own party isn't ready for, you to be openly expressing your gay affections on stage.
I am following the same fundraising practices that President Obama did and that our leaders have in order to make sure that we draw in all of the support that we need to win. And the campaign I'm building right now is not just for earning the nomination, it is for defeating Donald Trump, who, with his allies, has demonstrated that they will do anything to hold on to power. My campaign is about belonging. It is about
blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so you get the general tenor again, totally blowing what Rush said out of proportion, but this is what the left does. And I mean, granted, Trump isn't perfect, right? The gun ban the red flag laws do drive me crazy, right? With Trump, obviously he's not perfect, obviously. Look, obviously there are some real cringe Trump supporters out there. But, as the left just keeps going farther left, the rest of the country will vote for Trump out of spite, just to say, fuck you to the far left once again. That's exactly what I did, and that's, in the last go around, and that's exactly what, the country will do this go around. So, there you have it. At any rate, folks, I think that'll wrap it up for tonight's podcast, for tonight's Monday podcast. Again, sorry for the brief interruption there, kind of halfway through the show. But at any rate, I hope you guys have a good evening. For those you're listening on the audio or an archive, have a great day whenever you're listening to this in the past, present, future hour. And folks, the audio edition of the podcast for Thursday will be released on Thursday. And, well, since it's only Monday, I have no idea what we're doing for Saturday show. But again, apologies for the delays in show scheduling, and we'll be back to our regular schedule. From all of us here at NGC Studios, have a good night. God bless, and God save this great nation. God, freedom, legacy, in that order, and I will see you on the next podcast. God bless, everyone.